crossed over into the twilight zone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 360 Sports Network. I'm James Dawson. With me tonight, Greg the Mad Scientist Pichero and Alex the Saint DeLaverson. Gentlemen, how are we doing leading up to Super Bowl 47?
I smell a conspiracy, maybe? I don't know. Harbaugh Brothers Bowl? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm not really into the whole conspiracy thing, but if Ray Lewis wins Super Bowl MVP after maybe a tackle and smoking a cigarette on the sideline, then yeah, I'll be on board with the whole conspiracy thing.
Well, there's lots of storylines for this year's Super Bowl. There's lots of things that make us kind of scratch our heads, especially in many Super Bowls of recent. And that leads everybody to say that the NFL is fixed and that there are these Super Bowl conspiracy theories. And you know what? It happens more often than you think. And we have David Letterman style top 10 conspiracy theories for Super Bowls. So we're going to run down the list and we're going to see, do you think this is a good conspiracy? Do you think that maybe something is rotten here in Smallville? Or are we just, blowing smoke because we love to make a good storyline? So let's get it started, gentlemen. Our number 10 Super Bowl is the 2005 Super Bowl 39, where the Patriots defeat the Eagles 24-21. People say this is a conspiracy. I even heard people say that Terrell Owens poisoned Donovan McNabb at the end of the game, and that's why they couldn't do a 2-minute drill at the end of the game. It was really one of the ugliest finishes. The Eagles could have easily driven down the score and win the game. However, they just kind of sit there not knowing how to run a 2-minute offense. Alex, let's start with you. Is this a valid conspiracy, or are we just blowing smoke?
This is not a valid conspiracy. I'm sorry. Like, for this to be a conspiracy, so many things would have to happen. First of all, if there was a conspiracy, there'd be a leak about it. I mean, do you really think that either the Eagles didn't want to drive down on purpose or that T.O. poisoned Donovan McNabb? T.O. would want to win a Super Bowl. So, to me, I see no reason to believe that this is a conspiracy in any way, shape, or form. I honestly think this is ridiculous. Sometimes in 2-minute drills, teams just don't do well at it. There's all kind of clock management issues. I see no convincing reason to think that this is a conspiracy in any way, shape, or form. Although I wouldn't be surprised if T.O. would try and do that thing, but I really don't think that's the case.
I would have to agree with you on that one, Alex. It was said during that particular Super Bowl that Donovan McNabb had the flu. I just think the guy and this is a guy that didn't know the rules of overtime. This is a guy that was, I think, Super Bowl 39 was a harbinger of things to come as far as the fall of McNabb in professional football. I just think sometimes things do go third in the night, and that was the Eagles.
Now, the flu is what the conspiracy theorists will all say is not the real case, but I think I agree with you. This probably is a little bit too much, but that's why it's number 10 on our list and still a possibility. Moving forward to number 9. Number 9 on the list. You kind of mentioned it already, Alex. The Ravens defeating the Giants in Super Bowl 35, where Ray Lewis has 4 tackles, 1 pass deflection, yet he's the Super Bowl MVP for a defense who the only points they gave up were on a kickoff return. I think the main conspiracy with this one is the fact that Ray Lewis gets the MVP. What do you think?
Well, to be honest, I'd have to know everyone's individual statistics for the game. I can't really remember too much about that. I was really young then. I don't know if I'd say it would be a conspiracy that Ray Lewis got the Super Bowl MVP. Maybe there was obviously just a tendency to give it to him just because he's a big-name player, things like that. I don't know. Maybe not. But it is kind of weird, 4 tackles, you get a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, either the rest of the team didn't show up to play, or maybe those are some really critical tackles. I can't remember. But at first glance, you just kind of wonder, how does he get it with 4 tackles?
Yeah, that was, I don't want to say there's a conspiracy there. I mean, I think the conspiracy is what happened to Brian Billick after that Super Bowl victory. You know, they wanted Bill Cowher for his Super Bowl victories, and every coach that's had a Super Bowl victory sort of has themselves enshrined. And then you got Brian Billick, who wins the Super Bowl, and nobody wants to hire this guy as a coach. You know? But going back to Ray Lewis, though, there's a lot of strange fish in that kettle during that particular Super Bowl. Is it a conspiracy? I don't think so. I just think that the Ravens were a better team and probably a better coach team with an egocentric coach such as Brian Billick. But no, there was no conspiracy there.
Yeah, the only thing you have to explain to me is how Kerry Collins throws 4 interceptions, none of them to Ray Lewis, yet he's the one that gets the MVP. That's the only thing I'd be concerned of with number 9 on our list. Number 8, the 2007 Super Bowl, Super Bowl 41. The Indianapolis Colts and Peyton Manning finally win their Super Bowl, defeating the Bears 29-17. Little question mark about how Peyton Manning, the guy who can never win the big one, finally gets a chance to win it. And he finally does come out on top, but there's some interesting questions on here regarding what the Bears did on offense. What do you think there, Greg? Conspiracy, or what are we talking about?
You know, I might go out on a limb on this one here, to be honest with you, because Peyton Manning could never win the big one, even when he was at Tennessee, and he still struggles to this day in playoffs. Wasn't this? But then you take a look and you see how Archie Manning basically meddles with both of his boys to get them what they want. I don't know. Let's put it this way. That Super Bowl definitely had an odor about it.
The odor begins just with the fact that it was the really only rainy, non-weather compliant Super Bowl in history. Is that a part of this too, Alex, or am I just really going out on too much of a limb?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't see how this could be a conspiracy either, because what if he wins the Super Bowl 4 years from then? Let's say if he would have won it this year, then we'll say, oh, it was rigged this year. Finally, Manning, has a neck injury, he comes back player of the year, he gets shipped out of Indy, and he wins it this year. Okay, it's scripted. So, I mean, I don't think so, but I'd just like to make a quick statement about the first one we did was a Pats and Eagles, the whole teammate drive thing. I was actually just thinking about this now. There was controversy in that game, we know now, because of the whole Spygate situation, but it would be on the Patriots end too. So that is just something to keep in mind. But back to this particular Super Bowl, I remember, I think it was Devin Hester who returned the opening kickoff, 99 yards for a touchdown. I think it was 99 yards. So Peyton Manning comes back, and he leads the Colts to victory in rainy weather. Remember, he's a dome guy. I don't see how you could script that or write that. So,
well, what really is bothersome for me about this game is the Bears, who are a run-first team, period. I mean, no questions about it. Rex Grossman was their quarterback. They kind of had to be a run-first team. Yet, in a close game, they were down 16-14 at halftime, so real close. And Thomas Jones had, I believe, just 3 carries in the entire second half. That's where I get a little bit confused on this one.
Yeah. And once again, I think what happens here when we're talking about these conspiracy theories and traditionally maybe some bad games that might be, or not say traditionally bad games, but I mean, it seems like the Super Bowl does not bring out the best between the two teams that are out there. Usually the best games are played at the NFC or the AFC championships. But you're looking at this, perhaps instead of a conspiracy, you can maybe say that the Bears maybe overthought the thing a little bit, overthought or overcoached themselves, or just maybe got in their own way. I'm not sure.
well, I mean, I don't know, but you made a good point with the whole the AFC NFC championship game. I think those games nowadays are more entertaining than the actual Super Bowl. And you're right. A lot of these Super Bowls just really aren't cutting it. There's very few Super Bowls that you can just think to yourself, oh, wow, that was a great one. Oh, wow, there's no controversy or anything in it. So I think that was a good observation there. And we might not have an entertaining Super Bowl this year, but you see a lot of emotion left out there on during championship weekend.
Let's talk about this Super Bowl because it comes up at number 7 on the conspiracy theory list, the 49ers versus the Ravens. And we've talked about this in another podcast, but the fact of the matter being you have two brothers coaching against each other. You have Ray Lewis announcing he's going to retire, then all of a sudden his team coming on fire with a new head coach, or with a new coordinator, I should say, making it to the Super Bowl. Kaepernick for the 49ers coming out of nowhere. Lots of storylines. Is it a conspiracy? Alex, talk to me.
I'll tell you what, if there ever was a Super Bowl that would have some kind of controversy or conspiracy, if Ray Lewis wins the Super Bowl MVP, if he only has like a tackle, then I would really start to question this. I would really look at this because it's just so many things fell into place. I think you might have mentioned this in the other broadcast. Jim Harbaugh actually played with Ray Lewis, and now he's going against him, and his brother's coaching the Ravens now. You know, it was this whole big thing we talked about earlier. And now Ray Lewis all of a sudden just decided to announce his retirement before the playoffs started. And now here comes the team. You know, it's just, of course that's hard to write or script. It's almost impossible. But if there was one Super Bowl that had to be scripted, it really seems like this could be it.
Well, as I take my check as one of the writers of The Truman Show, I'm going to have to look at this and say, this thing kind of seems like The Truman Show a little bit. Tom Brady throwing the way he did, not making the plays that he would normally make, maybe he's getting old. All right, he's getting older. I would have understood that argument better with the Ravens versus the Broncos. But then why would Peyton Manning decide that he's going to throw against his body and do a Ben Roethlisberger-style move when he knows he doesn't have his arm strength? You know, these are just things that just make you go, why would you do this?
Yeah, and maybe we're searching a bit too much, but when all these things all come together, then it sounds, very fishy, and that's why we're here, gentlemen.
And one of the things that Roger Goodell loves to do is he loves to put together a beautiful show. And, Harbaugh Brothers, that was tested out two Thanksgivings ago when the Ravens met the 49ers in the Harbaugh Brothers Bowl 1. And they had, of course, Papa Harbaugh on over Thanksgiving, and they had the two boys on. And sometimes I think maybe a light bulb went on and said, you know what, this might be good to wrap up the NFL season, especially getting the people's minds off of referee-gate. The Lingerie League refs screwing it up and maybe tipping the hand for the Seattle Seahawks, who I believe are the luckiest team in the NFL, by the way. And I'd rather be lucky than good. But nonetheless, with all this being said, there's definitely a sour odor in the air. I don't believe Tom Brady does it. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was thinking about what he and Giselle were going to be doing. Who knows? Who knows?
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's scripted either. I was just saying, if there had to be one, it'd be this one. Just wait and see. We'll see what happens. But, I think Dodson's going to bring up a couple of Super Bowls that I definitely think there was controversy.
And that's why they're higher on the list. Another one that's in the news recently, the Raiders and the Buccaneers in the John Gruden Bowl, the year after John Gruden is essentially traded from the Raiders to the Buccaneers. Wouldn't you know, those two teams meet in the Super Bowl. It was a little bit, kind of shaky at that point right there. But then now, recent events with Tim Brown coming out and saying that their head coach Callahan kind of, didn't throw the game, but did everything he could to throw it because he really he didn't agree with the team, didn't respect the team, or he respected his opposing coach more, so he changed the game plan 2 days before the game began. First of all, is this a conspiracy, Greg? Second of all, does Tim Brown and Jerry Rice coming out and saying this does that make you think any more or less against a possible conspiracy here?
Well, I don't think it's conspiracy. I think this is just a classic Bill Callahan is a terrible coach. And the fact that he is now on the Dallas Cowboys staff and who has surpassed Jason Garrett and is now calling the plays for the Cowboys, I think all this stuff is rearing its ugly head right now because Bill Callahan has been a complete and utter failure everywhere where he has been. And, he overcoached himself in that particular Super Bowl. I believe that he changed the game plan. And he changed the game plan because he knew he had a mad scientist that he was going against because John Gruden was the better coach. And he knew what his legacy was, and he knew that, God almighty, if I don't change something up and do something dramatic, I'm going to really look bad. And, well, Gruden caught him in a game of chess and beat him at his own game.
All right, Alex, let's hear it. I know you're a big fan of Callahan because of some person who hired him in the past.
Oh, my God. Steve Peterson actually hired him. All right, but that's a different story.
That was out in Nebraska, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. He kicked out a coach who went 10-3 the previous year, who was a fan favorite, and he brought in this... I'm sorry, I shouldn't have sworn. He brought in this...
No!
But look, I don't want to change the subject, but I just want everyone to know that. Anyway. But also, I think, if I'm correct, didn't the Raiders player go missing a couple days before the Super Bowl?
Their center, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that he was kidnapped or something. I don't know the whole story. I don't know. But, if one of your teammates goes missing a day or two before, I mean, that could be a lot of mental, trauma there. But, you change the game plan a lot after all week of practicing. It's just stupid. No one wants to lose the Super Bowl. But I think, it is just a classic case of Bill Callahan being Bill Callahan there. But if I knew more about the Raiders player going missing, that is something to look at too.
We might hear a little bit more, or I might be able to make my decision a bit more soundly after we hear a little bit more of this Callahan story coming out. But, I mean, it was a little bit odd to begin with that, you know what, we could have a John Gruden Bowl based on the teams that traded for him, a head coach, and wouldn't you know it happened. So that in and of itself made it a little bit scary. Let's move down to number 5, a recent one now. The Saints winning 31-17 over the Colts recently after the Hurricane Katrina tragedy that had devastated New Orleans just a few months prior, and everything with the Who Dat Nation getting their Superdome back and all that glorious stuff. The one thing that I'll guarantee, if you ask Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne never gets beat on an in route like he did for that pick six at the end of the game. Driving down to send it to overtime, and all of a sudden Darren Sharper jumps in front of it? No way.
It is kind of funny. The Hurricane Katrina and then the Saints win. That seems like a WWE storyline. It honestly does. I mean, oh geez, it's always gonna be hard for me to say something was scripted. But it's kind of in a way, like you said, it's just kind of all the stars aligned for it to happen. I guess that's all I can really say. I wouldn't think that way if, the other Super Bowls, which I'm sure you're going to mention here shortly, didn't happen the way they did. If you understand where I'm coming from. If the other Super Bowls didn't turn out the way they did, I wouldn't hesitate at all. But it's just kind of the way things are playing out, the way things fall together, it's kind of like, maybe someone should write a book about this.
It's funny that we're all kind of squeamish on this one because it does have that odor of, man, this smells like economic success, economic reform, and we're going to put New Orleans back on the map, and it's all kind of warmer, gentler, Truman Show type thing that's going on here. But I really, really think that, no, it can't be a conspiracy. And think about this. Drew Brees and company The whole New Orleans defense, that's a Greg Williams defense. This was on the heels of, actually this is not on the heels, this was basically about maybe 5 years before the whole Bountygate thing opened its ugly head, and I really, really believe that the Saints were the better team. And who dat? Yep, who dat won. And it's unfortunate if you're a Colts fan, but that's the way the ball bounces in the NFL.
Yeah, it really is just the way it has to be. Moving forward, number 4 in our list is the Cowboys and the Steelers, the Neil O'Donnell Bowl. And, maybe things are a little bit too odd with this one as well. What do you think, Greg? What do you got to say about what Neil O'Donnell may or may not have done to cause some conspiracy with this?
Well, this was a game, and I don't know if you remember this game or not. I was much younger then. But this was a game which I really felt that the Steelers had controlled and could really, really just, we were going to get that one for the thumb. And all of a sudden he drops back and he throws this ball and it's intercepted, and it's like, who's he throwing it to? The Steelers are wearing black jerseys at that particular time frame, and he's throwing it to a guy in a white jersey. And you start to think, and then Neil O'Donnell was just, he was not a happy guy to begin with. I mean, this was the days of Yancey Thigpen and company there in Pittsburgh, and he just started to think, well, what happened here? And, yeah, as a Steelers fan, you wanted to think it had to be a conspiracy. It wasn't in the cards. It was basically the antithesis of the Cowboys whenever we beat the Cowboys in a previous Super Bowl, and Jerry Jones was going to have his way, and we all hate the Cowboys. But really, when you think back, I just think that these are timing routes. If you understand the game of football, you understand the fact that there are timing routes out there. And as a quarterback, the quarterback is going to throw to a spot on the field, period. And if that person is not on their route and they don't run the route that they're supposed to run, guess what? You're going to see plays that look like that, and that's what happened. That was a blown route by one of the Steelers receivers, and we deserve to lose the game because of that. I really firmly believe that.
All right, Alex, what do you think? Was it just bad timing routes, or was it more something like, I don't know, Neil O'Donnell got paid off or something?
I remember hearing that ever since I was 5 years old. I remember watching the Super Bowl. I remember immediately right after it, all you heard is Neil O'Donnell got paid off, blah, blah, blah. And, as a little kid, I believed it. And I asked my dad about it. He's like, no, who'd want to lose a Super Bowl? And, that's true, too. And, I do realize sometimes bad throws happen. But a few years ago, I actually decided to YouTube highlights of that Super Bowl. And when the interceptions came up, I could not believe my eyes when there were no wide receivers around. He literally just threw him the damn ball. And, a lot of people say, well, no, Charles Johnson was in that one area, blah, blah, blah. And, obviously I don't know Neil O'Donnell's mind, but they really were two awful interceptions. And the speculation grew after the Super Bowl, and all you heard on TV, radio, and Neil O'Donnell went out of town, the Jets, right after. He didn't resign. So I think he got paid off. He's making a lot of money. Why would he? Probably not, but, it really just makes me wonder. Could it really be?
If it makes you wonder, then, hey, why can't it be true? And you're right, people are going to say things like that. And, I think I agree with you, Greg, that I think they were just timing routes. But even on those timing routes, I don't know if I've ever seen where they're just that far off. I mean, there's times where the receiver cuts in and the quarterback thinks he's going to cut out. But I don't know if I can call it conspiracy on just 2 passes. But, hey, I mean, we're calling conspiracy possibly on a lot less than that on some of these as well. So.
Because remember, it's not like a whole team or something being scripted. It's just an individual player. And
Alex, I think the bigger conspiracy was who put up that money for Neil O'Donnell after he threw those 2 horrible interceptions, and why did the Jets want him so badly?
They're the Jets. That's why.
Yeah. Well, Rex Ryan wasn't there yet, but, that's another story, and we're just going to stay away from that one.
Right.
So instead, we'll move forward to number 3, and hey, we have another Steelers Super Bowl here. Super Bowl 40 in 2006. The Steelers beat the Seahawks 21-10. This is the year where the Steelers were the number 6 seed. They beat, I believe it was the Bengals in the first round. They beat the Colts in there in the second round. Then went out and defeated Denver to get to the Super Bowl as the 6th seed. And then, this is Jerome Bettis returning home to Detroit for his final hurrah. You got the Vinatieri shank along the way, all that sort of stuff. But then the officiating in the Super Bowl was just, lots of questionable calls. An offensive pass interference that seemed pretty phantom. Roethlisberger's touchdown run that replay showed maybe he didn't quite make it to the end zone. Let's start with Alex on this one. Try to keep your Steelers bias aside here, but could this have been a conspiracy?
You know what? It's been proven already. Well, I don't say proven, but it is well known that there are referees do have tendencies to lean one way or another. It's basic common knowledge. Just Google it. Referees talk about it all the time. I remember in the Pitt-West Virginia game, every call seemed to go against Pitt, and they're just phantom calls, all kind of awful things. It's just certain referees, certain groups of referees, whether it's conferences, this or that, have a tendency to lean one way or the other. And in the Steelers Super Bowl, they call back the first touchdown. Look, because a push-off, if I'm correct, that was a very bad call. And the Jerome Bettis, Ben Roethlisberger getting in, I think, at the half-yard line, that was another bad call. There was just so many bad calls after another. And I don't know if the refs are thinking in their heads, we want to try and get the Steelers in. I don't know what goes through their minds. But since it's already been established that referees do have tendencies to lean one way or another, I don't think it's, completely out of the question. At least that's the way I look at it. You never know.
I think it was just a case of the referees just having a bunch of bad calls. As a Steelers fan, I loved it. But from the Seattle perspective, when you look at what happened and you see what happened and how everything kind of fell apart, it's like, was that a deserved win on our part? Probably not. We didn't play our best game. Roethlisberger looked pedestrian at best. This wasn't the brilliant quarterbacking play that we saw in the games leading up to that particular Super Bowl. I really thought that it wasn't so much a conspiracy that we're going to have the Steelers win. I just think it was just a bunch of bumbling refs. And there's a ref that actually came out in record stating that he couldn't sleep at night over all those calls that happened that way. And you know what? Maybe he's right. Where there's smoke, there is some fire. I don't think it's so much a conspiracy. But I think that there was some bad calls that, well, it's out there.
Well, and it's disappointing that it had to happen, and, I feel bad for the referee who says he can't sleep at night now, but, bad calls or not, that doesn't mean there was a conspiracy, but it was this game that actually opened my eye to the vague possibility that, yes, the NFL could, in fact, be a little bit fixed in a way. And one of the games is actually number 2 on our list that really kind of shows you that when you think about it was the 2002 Super Bowl, the Patriots defeating the greatest show on turf Rams 20-17, kind of been dubbed the 9/11 Bowl. Wouldn't you know that after 9/11, a team that wears red, white, and blue called the Patriots against the defending champions, the great team, the powerhouse team that never is going to lose a game. Wouldn't you know that it is that red, white, and blue team with a no-name quarterback that wins the Super Bowl? I don't know, Greg. Do you smell it on this one, or are we really digging just because of coincidence and timing?
I think it's a kind of a coinky-dink and timing issue there. But it does make a nice storyline, doesn't it?
And when you have stories, when they keep popping up that we have great stories going into the Super Bowl every time, then we start thinking big time. What do you think, Alex?
Oh, man. See, I want to be very careful with, what I say because this was a tragic event and everything, but we found out 6 years later from that Super Bowl there were cameras involved with a lot of Patriots tapings, and Roger Goodell gets the evidence and all of a sudden just wants to destroy it, and offering no explanation. The one thing that could happen was for the Patriots to get punished. That was the one thing that we know could not happen in Goodell's eyes. I don't know. Of course, Tagliabue was commissioner around that time, but yeah, I don't think it was necessarily fixed, but there were things going on, like the whole Spygate thing. It makes, I don't think.
Well, they became America's team, and it was very fitting for America's team to win that. And, you can look at the possibility of a Spygate thing there, anything you want to talk about that. The one thing I will try to debunk this one on is the fact that they would go on and win 2 more Super Bowls in the next 3 years. So it's kind of tough for me to say conspiracy just because of the fact that they won that year, but they kept on winning afterwards. So I'll be a little bit careful, but that's the one that everybody speaks to first when it comes to conspiracy. Except for our number 1 on our top 10 list. And we have to go way back for this one. Super Bowl III, back in 1969. The Jets versus the Colts. The Jets and Joe Namath, Broadway Joe, winning 16-7. This is when the NFL Colts were just absolutely huge favorites over the AFL Jets. But Joe Namath guarantees a victory. And people are saying that, the only reason that they could go and win that game is because the AFL needed a quality win for the merger to end up happening. Greg, talk to me. What do you think? Could this be a conspiracy in the making, or are we still looking for way too much?
Well, as I can recall back then, I was 3 years old at the time.
So you remember that game?
I remember that game distinctly. And I think between that and whatever I was eating at the time and whatever. But nonetheless, it does make a kind of nice, tidy little sum about it. But you know what? Joe Namath was the big thing. He was the guy that he was the Russell Wilson that we have today. He was the guy. He was all that and more back then. The NFL had never seen anybody quite like Broadway Joe. And he was swagger, he was brash, and he made it happen, and he was also from Beaver Falls, and everybody loved him. So, with all that said, I really, really think that, no, there was no conspiracy there. It was just the Jets were the better team, and the better team won. Yeah, you can make arguments either way. You can go back, and what's nice about conspiracy theories is the fact that hindsight is always 20/20. But when you play the game, like I said about the botched pass route that Neil O'Donnell threw those interceptions. Yeah, when you play the game, sometimes you overcoach the game, a la Bill Callahan. Sometimes you beat yourself in your own chess match. Sometimes you do stupid things. But you know what? Let's even talk about the whole Petraeus scandal now. Okay? You can always say that there's a conspiracy there. Yeah, Petraeus was a soldier who went out and did something really stupid, cheated on his wife, and my God, now we've got something really bizarre happening in Washington, D.C. over the Iran, Iraq, and all this other controversy stuff that's going on. People do unpredictable things. People are a curious mix of contradictions. And when you have a game like the NFL, where you have referees that screw up, where you have coaches that screw up, where you have players that screw up, I really don't think these things, I honestly, I really, I don't think, maybe add another really in there, I really don't think that there's any conspiracy whatsoever. I just think it's the top game. There's a lot of pressure on people, and people in pressure situations do some pretty stupid things.
I agree with everything Greg said, and he went through every one, and I don't think there's really a conspiracy in any of them. And so let me ask you guys this: is there any sport moment, doesn't have to be NFL, that you could think of that there definitely was 100% a conspiracy?
I would say Lance Armstrong winning the Tour de France.
Okay.
And even that, I wouldn't call conspiracy, maybe fraud, because of the fact that
That's more
it
cheating
wasn't...
than a conspiracy.
Yeah, that was more cheating, more fraud on the behalf of one player than the entire organization or the entire league or anything like that. But, I mean, that's probably the first one I would think of, too. And I think a lot of these conspiracy theories are made up by the losing team or people who just don't like who the winning team is, and that's just what's bound to happen.
And really, that's a psychologically sound principle, because what they're trying to do is justify the fact that, oh, we sucked. And it's like, no, we didn't suck. The game was fixed.
Well, so both of you don't believe there's ever been a conspiracy in any sport?
Well, no, I mean, I think, you have the Black Sox scandal that in the days of baseball where you have Pete Rose that was basically throwing games, and that was conclusive, and that's why he's banned from baseball. I mean, there are some, I don't want to come out and say that there's never been any conspiracy, but on the same token, it's not as prevalent as what people make it out to be.
Well, nowadays, everything must be a conspiracy. Nothing can ever just happen.
Well,
it has to have happened for a reason.
There is, I'm not going to go into great detail about it, but there is one conspiracy, and you guys probably won't know this, and I think it's ironic because where this conspiracy took place came in the one organization that is scripted. I want both of you to Google when you get the chance, Montreal Screwjob. It actually came from the WWE, and it's the most well-known controversy. It was actually a scripted show actually had a conspiracy in it, and that is the most ironic thing I've ever heard of in my life. And
I was going to say, wait a minute, the WWE is already scripted. How could we have much conspiracy there? But that actually does sound...
That's what I'm trying to get at. I want both of you, when you get the chance to Google it, Montreal Screwjob. That was really the first known factual conspiracy that involved multiple parties and a whole organization to get a result done. But that is, I just find it ironic. The only one true conspiracy came from a scripted organization already.
Well, the one that's known, but we have at least 10, possibly 47 more scripted ones out there just in one sport itself. Exactly. Think about that before you go and watch your Super Bowl sitting on your couch eating some popcorn and drinking down a cold one. Who knows what will happen this year, but all we know is that no matter who wins the Super Bowl, it's already been decided.
On that note...
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.